What's up, everybody, and welcome to a Friday edition, your favorite day, the Friday episode of Morning Cuppa Hockey, presented by Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365, and we are also presented by Parasso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Parasso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations, so get 15% off at Parasso-USA.com with our promo code Hockey15, in all caps, Hockey15. That is not Colby Cohen across from me or next to me, however you want to say it. That is Jeff Marek. Very happy to be joined by Jeff this morning. Obviously, we're thinking of Colby again this morning. Yes. But we do have a lot of fun things to talk about. We do have Max Gershberg and Jake Rogal, the directors of Miracle, the boys of 80, hopping on here at around 9:45. So hopefully everyone saw the documentary on Netflix by now, and we can discuss it and dive deep into it. But Jeff, lots to get into from last night. Some cool Olympian things. We saw Zach Werenski carrying the flag around Columbus. We saw the Battle of Florida. The Olympics basically began last night with Brandon Hagel and Matthew Tkachuk. I mean, where do you want to start today?
I don't know. We're not allowed to do this at the Olympics, so let's just get this over with now. First of all, was it
That's exactly what I thought.
Was it like overshadowed, though, by a little like sweet on Swiss violence yesterday between Forsling and Moser? Before we get to Hagel and Tkachuk, do you have a thought on like punching guys when they're already down? Like this used to happen all the time in the 70s. Like this was like I always like veteran guys who like to clean up their past and pretend that there was respect in the game. There's more respect now in the game than there's ever been. Like, but that was like a throwback moment to when there was like next to zero respect in the game back in the 70s. That's what that moment felt like. Because now, like you played, like the protocol is someone goes down, the fight's over. But I mean, that's to Gustav Forsling.
That's the impression I've always been under. And you're not used to seeing Gustav Forsling do stuff like this. I mean, that is like big brother, like little brother. Like, that's like pretty insane.
That's 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Just, that was big boy, little boy. That was like a little bit of Matthew Brady in the Tkachuk household. Look, man, like the fight, and you saw Hagel afterwards talking about, it's good for the game. Fans loved it. I always think back to the old line, which is, we're going to have to do something about all this fighting, or we're going to have to build bigger buildings. Everybody loved it. It seems as if like there's a sort of movement within hockey now that fighting isn't sort of like only whispered in hushed tones and sort of shaded away. It seems like there's more of an embrace of it, at least at the NHL level. But the only there's two takeaways that are unfortunate. One, those two teams don't play another game in the regular season, and two, doesn't look like Florida's going to make the playoffs. You don't get to see minimum 4 more games of that in the postseason, which just would have been a banger again. What'd you take away from it?
What I took away from it, honestly, was how the whole thing started, right? It's Matthew Tkachuk kind of coming from behind the play and taking Nikita Kucherov out, and I don't think anyone necessarily wants to see that, but that's also like, this is good stuff. This is what a rivalry is, right? It's someone getting under the skin. The game's out of reach. You're down 4-0. Go do something to piss the other team off. Like that's what rivalries used to mean, right? If the game is out of hand, you want to make the other team feel something. And that's the worst thing, I think, as a fan, is when your team just lays down and takes a beating. But Florida, like if they're down 4-0, they're going to fight back, and they'll do it, in maybe a little bit of a cheap way. And I know that pisses a lot of people off that don't root for the Panthers, but that's what makes the Panthers, right, Jeff? Like, if they're losing to you, they'll still find a way to beat you anyway. Yeah. And that's what I took away, honestly. It's the fact that we're talking about the fights, but we're not talking about how the fights even started.
There was Marty McSorley told me a story once about when he went from the Pittsburgh Penguins to the Edmonton Oilers. And the Oilers had Dave Semenko, who was like, king of the jungle in the NHL for a lot of years. And Marty goes there, and he's a really young kind of gunslinger. And he wants to fight all the time. And Dave was like, no. We don't do this every night. We can't do this all the time. Marty, we're not going to do this. And Marty says, like, a few games go by. And he's like, when are we gonna fight, Dave? When are we gonna fight, Dave? And Dave's like, not yet, Marty, not yet. And he comes into the dressing room one day, and Dave's taping up his wrists, and Marty sits next to him, and Dave says, Marty, every now and then we must remind them. And tonight we're going to remind them. And that was Dave Semenko, who was one of the wittiest, most clever players, and specifically fighters, the NHL ever had, saying, tonight's the night we're going to remind them of who we are. And this doesn't always happen between Florida and Tampa, where it gets to that level of egregiousness. But I kind of looked at it, Marty, and went like, that's Dave Semenko saying, and tonight we remind them. We're not going to play Tampa for the remainder of the season, and we might not make the playoffs.
Yeah.
We're going to remind the Tampa Bay Lightning that we're not going anywhere. It might be a step back season for us, but we are going to remind them. And now that it's the lead on every hockey show today. Or
it's actually a great point.
The Olympics, that's the lead. That's the lead.
No, but it's a great point. Like the fact that they aren't going to see each other again. Like that is a really good point. It's like sending a message almost for next year, maybe if Florida doesn't make right. Like that's kind of how I'm seeing it now. Like after you just said that,
they're reminding Tampa. They're reminding Tampa. This is in case you want to forget. For the remainder of the season, when we don't face off against each other and in the playoffs, if we're not there, just so you don't forget who we are and what we're all about, this is who we are. This is Matthew Tkachuk, and this is even Gustav Forsling going after Moser. This is who we are.
And with Kucherov, like the way he was hit, obviously, I saw a comment in the chat. Forgot who said it. Invisibility said, "Nah, don't hit an unsuspecting guy from behind," which I totally agree with. But is it also one of those cases too, where like, you're always taught as a player, you have to be aware of who's on the ice at all times. And Matthew Tkachuk is, one of those guys late in the game. He's not going to do it cleanly all the time, right? Like he will sneak up on you and he'll slash you in the back of the leg. He'll punch you in the back of the head and he'll do what he did last night. Like I'm not saying this is like Kucherov's fault, like by any means. I don't want my words to be twisted. I'm just saying do you have to be suspecting something at all times with a guy like that on the ice?
You do head on a swivel, like, last weekend with, Logan Stankoven coming out from around the net and Tom Wilson's shoulder. Like you gotta know who's out there. And just because you just let go of the puck, that doesn't mean you're not still a candidate to be hit for 1 steamboat, 2 steamboat, 3 steamboats, 4 steamboats. Look, the way that I've always looked at sports, and specifically hockey, Johnny, is like this. I think I've mentioned this to you before. Sports exists in between what your head knows and your heart feels. My head cannot justify what Matthew Tkachuk did to Nikita Kucherov. I can't. But my heart goes like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm with that. Yeah.
But there's like that fight between my head and my heart. My heart's like, this is awesome. My head's going, are you an idiot? What's wrong with you? You're supposed to be a grown man. And then my heart goes like, well, hold on a second. Why do I feel this way? And my head goes, you're smarter than this. And that's the fight when you watch hockey. That's the struggle. We've all had it. Like, look in the mirror, everybody, and admit it to yourself. You've had that struggle. I cannot intellectually justify, a sneak attack on someone from behind. I can't. It's just way too dangerous. That's what my head says. But my heart says, all right, we're lit. Here we go. This is, to your point, this is what you do when you have a feud. This is what you do when you have a legitimate rivalry. There's someone out there that's going to do something dumb. And that's hockey. And that's the fight.
The best part about it too, Jeff, there's a picture, and I don't know if we have it or if they could find it, but there's a picture of Tkachuk and Hagel throwing hands, and Kucherov is like in the corner of the picture in the background, just like, like he's loving it. But this rivalry, I mean, it has become must-watch TV. Think about every game this year, even in the preseason. The Battle of Florida delivered every single time this year, and it's a shame that we won't see them again. To your point, but any other thoughts on that game last night, the rivalry, before we kind of move on into Team Canada, Seth Jarvis, and that announcement yesterday?
Well, that game itself was the season that was the season for the Tampa Bay Lightning and the season for the Florida Panthers. And that season was indicative of where those two teams are right now. And I know for the Florida Panthers, it's a combination of fatigue, injuries, and bad goaltending. Okay, and that's where the Panthers are. That is like the accurate snapshot of how good Tampa is and how poor the Florida Panthers have been this season. So to me, that was like the accurate snapshot of where these two teams are at. And there was just that little love letter there between those players that reminded us that they're going to pick up this romance next year in October, and they're not going anywhere.
I wanted to read this tweet too. So this actually might take us into a side tangent. But Michael Amato, I saw this tweet last night. He said, the fact that it looks like Florida is going to miss the playoffs has to make the season the Leafs are having, or the Sens, Devils, etc., for that matter, sting that much more. Panthers looked nearly impossible to beat in a 7-game series the last 3 postseasons. And the best way to beat them, it got cut off for a second here. The best way to beat them might be keeping them out of the tournament altogether. One major roadblock is already cleared. And I like, how could you not agree with that? If you're the Devils, if you were the Leafs, if you were any team that has had to run into the Florida Panthers. I mean, honestly, the Lightning are one of them. They've been knocked out by the Panthers 2 years in a row. They must be thrilled right now with what they're seeing in the standings, but you have to look at yourselves and say, wow, this Eastern Conference really is wide open for the taking, and this is the season we're going to have, the disappointment we're going to have when the team that we need to knock off is basically beating themselves this year. It's a shame for the teams that had such high hopes coming into the season, like a New Jersey Devils and Toronto Maple Leafs.
I always think it's a ripoff when the defending Stanley Cup champions don't make the playoffs. Now, it doesn't happen very often, but I always feel like, okay, you know what, that's like a ripoff, because along the way, you want the defending, because if there's going to be a new Stanley Cup champion,
you want to knock them down.
Old Stanley Cup champions. Well, you know, I think about, and this is funny too, because this sort of winks to your point about rivalries and the feud between these two squads. When the Washington Capitals won the Stanley Cup in 2018, they had to beat the Pittsburgh Penguins along the way. I mean, technically they didn't, but between the ears of all those players, Washington Capitals, they needed to beat Pittsburgh along the way. That was the dragon they had to slay along the way. And it's first of all, it's a very Brad Marchand thing to slip out of getting beaten. But right now, the Florida Panthers are slipping out of getting beaten. Right? They can say, like, no one beat us in a series. We just didn't make the playoffs. We just had a tough year, etc. Nobody, like, come on. Can you not
spin.
Can you not see Brad Marchand spinning it like this at the end of the season? No one's going to beat us.
1,000%.
No
as he should
in the playoffs.
Yeah, as he should. As he should. Paul Maurice, too. I mean, yeah, that's a good point. But like Hurricanes fans, I see a lot in our chat, and we always have Hurricanes fans in our chat. And what a game they played last night. Purely
Good
dominant.
team.
Brandon Bussey, best story in the NHL. Brandon Bussey, 23-3-1. But if I'm a Hurricanes fan right now and I'm seeing what's happened to the Florida Panthers, I am begging your dear friend, Eric Toasty, to go out and get something, because this is our chance. This is it. This is the 1 year where the Carolina Hurricanes, you know, everyone talks about the playoffs. They're going to run into some sort of roadblock, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen. They better go do something.
You know,
but what can they do?
You know, it's really interesting. Bussey's a fascinating guy, because Bussey's aggressive. Like, he almost seems like if he were a player, he'd be a Rod Brind'Amour style player, because he's aggressive and he challenges. And you look at how the Carolina Hurricanes play in their own zone, and I kind of look at it as, you know, that scene in the original Star Wars. I'm dating myself with that reference. I
have not seen it.
Han Solo and Chewbacca are about to get squished, and like, you look at how the Carolina Hurricanes play pressure game in the defensive zone, and they are on you, like push. There's no room, and here's Bussey, who's trying to stay on top of players. So you have like this effect happening. And I know you'll say, well, hang on, actually Carolina guys are trying to push them off to the side. But even if they can't get there, they're pushing them towards the goaltender, who's on top, because Bussey plays so aggressive. Like, does he not seem like the perfect goaltender for this team and how they play with Rod Brind'Amour? He's not hiding in the back of his net. He's not along the goal line. He's out and he's on top of you. Like, that to me just screams Carolina. Like, he looks like he's made to play that system of hockey. Am I making something up here that's not actually true? Because that's what I see. Like, Bussey's right out there, and like he doesn't move back as pressure comes from the Carolina Hurricanes on the backs of, I don't know, pick your team, New York Ranger forwards.
Well, I hope you're happy, because I'm getting comments in the chat. Geez, Johnny, watch Star Wars. So, yeah, Star Wars is not. It's not my forte. Not my forte. I understand what you're saying.
You know what?
But it's interesting, Jeff, because it's not like Bussey's. Yeah. I always find it like really cool when a player's style of play doesn't really match their personality. And I don't know if the aggressiveness matches Bussey's personality. He's a very calm, reserved type of guy. I'd say even like soft spoken, very nice. Like I've known him since we were younger. I skated with him in the summers, because he's only I think 2 years younger than me, from Long Island. But like, I don't remember him as a kid like being super talkative in the locker rooms. Like, you know, he kind of just was reserved, but when he was out there, he was like almost like a bigger Tim Thomas, Jonathan Quick. Like, he didn't like let the puck hit him. He went and saved the puck. There are goalies who are in position to let the puck, like that's how they make the saves. It's like the puck just happens to hit them versus actually like, dancing around in the crease, making the saves. And that's what I see from Brandon Bussi.
That's such an interesting point about the player off the ice versus the player on the ice. In art, there's a theory. I can't remember who said it. Someone in the chat can look it up, or maybe Vic can. Artists should look like bankers. The idea being you save you save all of your emotion. Like sort of it follows the idea of like be boring and regular in your everyday life so you may be violent and passionate in your art. Right? Like that's the balance that you'd try to strike. The idea being save all of that aggression, emotion, all of it. Save all of that for your art or save all of that for your sport. I know it may look like they're completely different, but I guess like philosophically you could say they arise mutually. Like one is like you look at Bussi the player, really aggressive, really like aggressive and passionate and all that, and then off the ice he's just sort of quiet, nice, like good dude, right? And you say, wow, that's two different people. But like a lot of like the Eastern philosophers will say, no, it's actually just at the two ends of the same log. These two things arise mutually. So it does philosophically make sense, even though they look different.
Yeah, the ice is almost like a stage, and they're just performers.
That's it.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is. Yeah.
So you just nailed what I was trying to say there, and it took me
I got
2.5 minutes to spit it out,
I got it.
and you got it in like 2 sentences. Well done. Yeah, that's what I think about that, because I like that too.
While we're talking Canes, I think I got to ask you this question. As a Canadian, obviously Seth Jarvis gets picked yesterday, and one of the best guys you could just interview about that sort of scenario, like the fact that he didn't even take the first call, and he's just like us, right? I see a random number, I'm not picking it up. If it calls again, I'll probably pick it up. But they leave off Zach Hyman, they leave off Connor Bedard, they leave off Mark Scheifele. Did they make the right choice, or does it even matter? Will Seth Jarvis even work his way into the lineup? Like, is this just the extra forward that they're bringing for the vibes, bringing for the chemistry of last year at Four Nations? Is that really what this is more about than the player itself?
No, they're bringing for the aggressive penalty kill, right? Like that's like one of the calling cards for Seth Jarvis here. Like
similar player type of point too.
Similar, and that's the thing. And here's what I wonder about. I was having a conversation with someone else about this last night. If you believe, and there was a belief that they were going to play Point with Connor McDavid, do you give it a shot to play Seth Jarvis with Connor McDavid? If that's the direct replacement. I look at him. I look at him in the lineup and say like, I'm looking at him in the lineup and I say like, okay, super aggressive, speedy. I love how he forces defensemen to make decisions the way he uses ice, and great on the penalty kill. And again, not to put too much of an accent on Canada was built to beat America and America was built to beat Canada, and that's how these two teams have constructed it. But man, oh man, like one of the calling cards for Jackson Lacombe, and there was a big stink about his inclusion, is killing penalties. And I look at why they're bringing Seth Jarvis, killing penalties. Well, why are they so concerned about penalties? Because I think both teams are playing super aggressive in this tournament. I'm going to play super aggressive against each other. Having said that, Seth Jarvis, full stop, one of my favorite players. Like I like a lot of those guys on the Carolina Hurricanes, as you know, but man, Seth Jarvis, I could watch all day long. I am curious to see if they put him with McDavid. I really am curious to see if they play him there.
He didn't really play a whole lot in Four Nations. Who are his line mates? Was it? I think the first game he played with Marchand, right, and maybe Cirelli. Was that the line in the first game? I'm struggling to remember who he played with.
That's a million years ago.
Maybe someone in the chat could help us out. But I guess of the three, of Scheifele, Hyman, Bedard, which do you think was the bigger snub?
I thought Hyman. I thought Hyman might get it. I really did, just because Hockey Canada loves pairs and trios. And, you can have, Taves, Makar, and McKinnon out there. I mean, everybody was sort of, always in love with, the Russian 5-man unit and how they moved and all that. And you can't really do that anymore in hockey at this level. But you can do pairs and you can do trios sometimes. And that's why in a short tournament where you need instant chemistry and you can't wait to see if something will work, I thought that Hockey Canada would default to Zach Hyman. I really did. I thought that would be like, okay, you know what? Connor's got his guy. We know it works. Let's not overcomplicate this thing. But then, you hear, John Cooper the other day talking to Elliot in that feature. And, he's talking about, going to war with the same guys that he went to war with in Four Nations. And I get that. And that gives you the sort of the leg up. I would still have made different personnel decisions. But, well, again, I can't criticize until we see the tournament. I feel kind of fraudulent saying this is a bad decision because, what if Canada wins gold? Or if I look at, Bill Guerin and Cole Caulfield, Jason Robertson, and they win gold, what can we say? Nothing.
There's also no bad decision. That was actually, we're gonna talk about the Miracle documentary. I think that was one thing that was said in the documentary because Herb Brooks was the last cut in the 1960 Olympics, and the U.S. went on to win gold. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure Herb Brooks' dad, when they won the gold, looked over to him on the couch and said, "Well, guess they cut the right guy." I think that was in the documentary. Yeah.
So thanks. Good. It was early on. That's a great doc.
Yeah. But again, Canada is not losing gold because they're bringing Seth Jarvis, right? Jarvis is not going to make or break the gold medal. So these decisions, while they seem big, probably not all that big. And I'm so happy for Seth Jarvis, unbelievable guy, such a fun guy to talk to, always very appreciative. He's so happy just to, I think, be a part of this too, which I love. Yeah. Last night he was super funny saying I was going to Cabo, but this is a way better place to be, stuff like that. It's awesome.
And self-aware too, right? That's the one thing whenever I have a conversation with Seth Jarvis, just so self-aware of who he is, his place in the game, his place amongst, players on the Hurricanes, superstars around the NHL. We better hope, Johnny, that he has a long NHL career because when he's done, he's taken all of our jobs.
Oh yeah,
we might as well go find some work at the local ice cream shop or coffee shop or post office because when Seth Jarvis is done, if he wants it, he will take all of our jobs. He really will.
All right, Jeff. Next topic. The Pittsburgh
hang on. What did you think? What did you think last night of Carolina? Because I whenever Andrei Svechnikov scores, I get tons of tweets. Because I've been on the Svechnikov train going back to when he was with the Barrie Colts, and I look at the skill and I always say, this guy, somewhere, I'm still stunned that he hasn't come close to winning, because all the skills are there, winning a Rocket Richard trophy.
Rocket Richard?
Scoring last night. Yeah, that's the skill that this guy has
scored
to score.
30?
No, he hasn't come. I think he has. He's either scored it once or he's come close. But the thing is, when you look at the skill set and the size and the strength and the shot and all of it, I don't know. There are some guys that you look at and you say, how is it not working? All the individual things that go into making a high-end hockey player, the guy has, but it just doesn't happen. I'm sure you've played with and seen a million guys like this. And to me, Andrei Svechnikov has always been one of those guys.
Yeah, but this one's bad for me because I don't know if you remember earlier this year I said that Andrei Svechnikov and Alexis Lafreniere are probably comparable in a 1-for-1 trade, and I'm trying to stand on business and have a backbone on this one, but yeah, it's definitely looking bad for me. Yeah. The more and more we see Svechnikov take off. At the time, both guys I think had been underperforming this year. Obviously, Lafreniere has continued to underperform. Svechnikov though, I want to defend myself in one regard. Last year going into the playoffs, I said Svechnikov has to be their best player. And, a lot of these postseasons that I've watched Carolina, he has been their best player. And you see him turn it on, but you don't really see it consistently for 82 games. We haven't, at least, in these last few years. I'm with you. I would think Svechnikov is easily a point-per-game player, but hasn't shown it. Just like I thought the world of Lafreniere, I would think he'd be a point-per-game player, but he hasn't shown it. It was more me trying to think highly of Lafreniere than it was to disrespect Svechnikov when I made that take. But the point was that both one, first overall, second overall, that haven't necessarily played to that.
Isn't that kind of it's funny too, because I'm reaching for another player to provide as an example as I'm going on about Svechnikov and the individual skill set. That's Alexis Lafreniere too. Yeah. Right? You look at all the things that go into making a hockey player. He's got a lot of them. It's not all of them, but it hasn't clicked. Mm-hmm. Why?
Yeah.
Who knows?
I think we're all asking that same question.
Taller forehead than mine. Taller forehead.
But I will say that Svechnikov is stronger. Svechnikov is a better skater. Svechnikov has a better shot. Lafreniere might have maybe the better hands, but like Svechnikov still has great skill and good hands. But yeah, I can't really defend Lafreniere anymore. So let's get into the next topic if we can, because the Rangers make me sad, as everyone saw that serial post last night. But Pittsburgh Penguins, Avery Hayes, someone who was undrafted, signed out of the OHL, played for the Hamilton Bulldogs, Peterborough Petes, scores 2 goals in his first NHL game last night. What did you make of him? What are you making of the Pittsburgh Penguins? Because right now, like as a Ranger fan, I will say, seeing Dan Muse have a lot of success and seeing Mike Sullivan come over from the Penguins to the Rangers and seeing them in last place in the East, it is tough. Like this, we saw Knobloch go, we saw Dan Muse go. Both guys have had massive success in the places they've gone. And Avery Hayes last night, he's a story out of Pittsburgh.
He was one of, if not maybe Kyle Dubas's first move when he took over as general manager of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I got to go back and check that, but it was one of the first moves that Dubas made. Like Dubas is really, really good at that sort of under the radar, everybody's missing on kind of move. I do want to talk about another player that fits that mold too. But Avery Hayes, when he played with the Bulldogs, Jay McKee, who will be a head coach in the NHL one day, Jay McKee was his coach, and he would always say, like, the kid's got like great motor, great hands, incredible skill. He said, but don't forget, like, this guy plays with a little bit of a bite too. This guy can bite. And on that first goal, it's an awesome play. It starts in Pittsburgh's own zone. Vic, I'm not sure if you have it, but Ilya Soloviev, I want your thoughts on this one, because you played. Like, how smart a play is this by Soloviev? I know he's like a third pairing defenseman, but still, it's a face-off win by the Penguins. Soloviev doesn't force anything. It's just a flip into the neutral zone, and Hayes is gone on the play, and it leads to his first goal. Like, Soloviev is like another one of these guys that Dubas has sort of, recognized. He's a 7th-round pick of the Flames. They lose him on waivers. Like, look at that play. Right from the corner, that flip to the neutral zone, and then Hayes just turns on the Jets and scores. What do you think of the Soloviev flip pass to Hayes on that play? Like, how many guys just like hard rim it and aren't thinking, I'm going to make a flip play to the neutral zone? You tell me.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not all that impressed with that play. Like that's a defenseman like almost in a panic position. Like, he has pressure on him, and instead of going glass and out where a defenseman can, pick it off the boards or get in front of it with their body to keep it in the zone, it's a safer play to just try to, I think, Mike Sullivan has called it the punt and hunt. So, just to punt the puck out, basically. Like, I think it's the safe play. And yeah, it's impressive because he probably knows who's on the ice in Avery Hayes, a guy who can, skate into a puck like that as a defenseman when you're forced to back up and there's someone coming at you full speed. Yeah, it's tough to defend them and stop them without interfering them and getting sent to the box. But I feel I don't want to take away credit from Soloviev, but like, I think it's a pretty common play. I don't know.
Look at as he's curling to the corner. Like, what do you think Soloviev's going to do with the puck there? Rim on the boards, or high glass?
I would think high glass. I would think high glass. Like, if you're a defenseman on your strong side,
and then it's coming back on an icing.
But then either
Instead,
way, like either way, Hayes would be the weak side winger, kind of slashing and skating into it. So it's a smart play. It's a smart play either way you want to put it. Obviously, like, I'm not saying it's not a smart play, but I definitely feel like it's more common than uncommon right now in the NHL. I think Avery Hayes, the fact that he like settles the puck down and puts it in the exact spot he wanted to, like, the shot was more impressive to me than the Soloviev play, because, going low blocker against the grain is, like, I think the hardest shot for a goalie to save. And for him to score that his first NHL goal, like, yeah.
I was going to say, I just love the Soloviev story.
Yeah, right? Well, yeah.
So Soloviev's story is a great one for those that don't know. Went through OHL draft, went to Saginaw from Belarus. He showed up. Chris Lazary, who, again, is another guy one day will coach in the NHL, was his coach in Saginaw, and he showed up with his hockey equipment and a bag of clothes. Like, it might have even just been like a garbage bag of clothes. It's like, this is my last shot to make it. And he like did anything and everything. Like, literally, Johnny, he came to North America with nothing.
I don't even know the
like
story, to be
0.
honest.
Oh yeah, Belarusian player gets to Saginaw, goes through OHL draft. He was unselected, goes to Saginaw. He's got nothing but his equipment and one bag of clothes. I remember the story. What was the story? He used to like pound coffee creamers. You know those little tiny little cups of coffee, just like
He would just drink those. Really?
Just drink those like milk. Oh yeah, great story. I remember talking to Laz about that, and like earned every single. Now, what sucked for him is OHL was shut down with COVID. That was the year that Cole Perfetti was a star with Saginaw too, and so the unlikely track of the kid from Belarus goes to the OHL for 1 year and then goes to play. I think he went with Alexei Protas, went to play in the KHL with Dynamo Minsk. Like, it's a very, very different path than a lot of guys have taken to get to the NHL. Calgary takes them in the 7th round on a flyer, lose them on waivers to Colorado. Colorado's got, I don't know how many players in front of him that are sort of blocking him. Sam Malinsky signs and all of it. And the Pittsburgh Penguins recognize we could get a good player here on the cheap. And that's like, to me, that's Dubas. Like, that is classic Kyle Dubas right there. This kid's being blocked. He's better than the position that he's in right now. Let's see if we can get him here. It's a classic.
But I feel like even going back to maybe even like Ray Shero years. Maybe I'm mixing up my years. You would know better than me. But like, finding those diamonds in the rough that like aren't drafted, like the Connor Sherrys, Zach Aston Reese, like those, and those are college guys. So maybe it's easier to get the college free agents. But I think, and Sidney Crosby for the like Soloviev, is a defenseman, so he's not playing with Crosby. But like, Avery Hayes is another one, right? You're just finding these guys who go undrafted that are maybe late bloomers that seem to find a way to work in Pittsburgh. Like, they're one of the organizations that finds those guys.
I'm glad you got us here, because the point that I've been making all year long, and he scored a pair of goals last night against the Swords, is Ben Kindle. So Ben Kindle, and this is no offense to the player at all. If Ben Kindle wasn't drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins, but was drafted by another team that didn't have Sidney Crosby, is he playing for the Calgary Hitmen of the Western Hockey League right now? I just can't help but thinking that being around Sidney Crosby from camp to first 9 games to all of it hasn't had an incredible positive effect on Ben Kindle. Again, no slight on the kid.
Yeah.
We generally don't see people selected in that position sticking with their NHL team all season long and excelling. What's he got now?
He was 11th. I think he was 11th overall.
11th or 12th overall.
12th.
Yeah, in that area.
The only other organization I'd maybe think would be Buffalo, actually, just because Zach Benson, right? Like, he went 13,
and
I think guys. He made it at
the thing is, like, the Sabres have always rushed guys. Like, that's I think Pittsburgh's not rushing him. It's like, legitimately, he belongs on the team. And I just can't help but thinking a lot of that is Crosby. The story of the Buffalo Sabres under Kevin Adams was rush kids to the NHL.
Yeah. And I think with Kindle, it's his skating. He's such a good skater. That was his first NHL game. And to your point, his first NHL game, his first shift, he started the game. It was at MSG. He started the game with Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and I maybe it was Carlson. That was the 5th skater out there. But imagine your first NHL shift at MSG, because they were celebrating the 20 years together of those 3, of Crosby, Malkin, Letang. So Dan Muse started all 3 of them with the kid. Oh, it was Brunick. Brunick was the other player. It was his first NHL game too.
Oh yeah,
Kindle
rookie
Brunick.
Game too. Yeah.
So how awesome is that? Those 2 starting the game with those 3. So it starts there. Brunick obviously hasn't stuck around the whole season.
Nope.
But yeah, what Pittsburgh's doing has been. Listen, everyone was saying trade Sid. Now you can't.
No. If anything, I remember asking Dubas this when I had him on the sheet in like September, maybe August. No, I think it was September. Are you trying to speed up development just so you can get more kids in the room with Crosby? And he gave the right answer, which is no, of course, we're not trying to speed up development. We can't speed up development, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you're telling me that they don't want Rutger McGroarty in that room with Sidney Crosby?
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me like they don't want like all these guys? Like, okay, you know what? Get him through Wilkes-Barre. Get him through Wilkes-Barre. Get him to the Pittsburgh Penguins, because we need these guys to get the rub of being in the room and around and in the weight room and on the plane and in the hotel and traveling and all of it around Sidney Crosby. So the standard of this is how we work here in Pittsburgh goes right down to the Kindles and the Rutger McGroartys.
It's a good point. It's a good question,
oh,
too.
you can't rush that. You can't rush that. But, like, man, that's got to be awful tempting. Get these guys in the room with Crosby. Get him in the room.
Either way, he'll probably be around, right, when he's done playing. I don't think he's going anywhere. Like, he'll stick around.
You know what's so weird about it? Like, considering how much of a star he's been in the league for so long, and even before that, like a star in junior hockey with Vermusky, how much do we really know about Sidney Crosby? As far as, like, we know the competitor and the athlete, what makes him tick. Like, there's still a lot of mystery about Sidney Crosby, and I think one of the big ones is what you're talking about here, Johnny, and that is, what's he going to do when he's done? Just had a cameo in the background there.
Yeah, my mom.
Probably more interesting than me. Mrs. Lazarus, can you please take my place on the program?
Yeah,
You'd be more interesting, probably better looking, too.
She's a loyal listener. She loved the conversation yesterday when we were referring to Gavin McKenna and how someone called his mother a whore.
Yeah, well,
she was a big fan of that conversation.
I had Mike McMahon on the sheet yesterday, and it was
that was great. That was great, by the way.
It was an interesting conversation. Yeah, Mike's awesome. College Hockey Insider newsletter. Everyone should subscribe. It's fantastic. Like this one. Again, like the one thing you can't lose sight of here, and Mike brought up a great point about, like, was the other person, maybe you know the answer to this, was the other person a college student? Was the person that got
I believe it was reported, that he was. Yeah.
There was a student, because that's even more trouble. That's even more trouble for Gavin McKenna here, as opposed to just like some random drunk guy.
I don't know if I want to dive too deep into that story, but I do think more articles that came out yesterday was the kid was basically seeking to get punched in the face for the money grab. Like he wanted to get, that's exactly what he wanted, you know? But again, like, 21-year-old senior is what I saw. De La Presti just put that in the chat. Yeah. So kind of makes sense when you think about it that way.
That's not good because, like, he's a Canadian student on a visa.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Is he going to finish the season in medicine hat, Johnny? Is he finishing
That's what Colby
medicine
thinks.
hat, Johnny?
That's what Colby said. Don't want to start a media storm with that, though. But, Jeff, last topic here before we get into our interview with Max Gershberg and Jake Rogal, because we had them on in about 5 minutes. I know you specifically wanted to talk about the reception that Barry Trotz received in Washington last night. And it started yesterday in the morning with Spencer Carberry addressing Bailey Johnson, obviously someone who was there every day, and the sad news with people in the Washington Post being let go. So, Washington just continues to show class, and I know that was something you'd like to talk about.
Well, just the Bailey Johnson thing, like, it just breaks your heart. I mean, everything that's happened to the Washington Post. I mean, I grew up with, the Post as, the paper that broke the Watergate scandal, and to see what's happened to that shining sort of beacon of journalism over the years here with Jeff Bezos owning it is, to be diplomatic about it, disappointing. And we feel for Bailey Johnson, and she's too talented to be out of work long. And I just thought it was really classy of Carberry because, you were in a season, these Washington Capitals are scrapping for a playoff spot. Every point counts for the Washington Capitals right now, hyper-focused on his team, and he takes time to mention Bailey Johnson. I thought there was a class note that's struck there by Spencer Carberry, one of the classiest and best coaches in the NHL, quite frankly. And then, with Nashville at Capital One yesterday, playing the Washington Capitals. I thought it was a really nice touch. They did the video tribute. As we all know, Barry Trotz is retiring. Barry Trotz was the coach behind the bench as the Capitals. Well, like, look at that. Like in the GM's box, as he's getting a standing ovation after the video tribute. He's on the visiting team. Like, when have you seen a general manager get the standing ovation from a team? We see it with players all the time, the welcome back. But when do you see it for a general manager? I just thought it was a really nice touch by the Caps organization. Like, they struck a lot of right notes, and helps that they won the game too. But as far as like showing the class of your organization, I think that the Caps really did a great job to show what and the fans too. Like, let's not forget here, like, classy gesture by the Washington Capitals fans through all of it. Just well done, hitting the right notes at Capital One yesterday. Both the coach and the fans and the game ops.
I haven't seen that like in my lifetime, like a GM get the reception like that. But I also was thinking like it is kind of a shame that we didn't see Barry Trotz behind that bench longer, right? Because he won the cup with them, and I think he went to the Islanders that summer, didn't he? And going into the playoffs, wasn't it like this is a make or break postseason run? Wasn't that like out there?
Hang on, was it that summer or was it the following summer that he left?
I think he won the cup and
it
then left
was. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I won the cup
because they weren't going to renew him.
That wasn't
right?
even that long ago. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, that's right.
But I remember that being one of the crazier stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I always liked him as a coach. I mean, he was, again, like I'll go back to one story that Chris Mason told me years and years ago when he was coaching Nashville, and Pekka Rinne, who's like one of the best and most underrated goaltenders of his era, that I still don't think we talk enough about as being one of the best goalies of all time. So Pekka Rinne really succeeded well under Barry Trotz because Trotz understood that a goalie like Pekka Rinne always needed to have a lot of shots early. Now, low percentage shots, mind you, but had to have a lot of shots early to get into the game. He needed to feel the puck. And then Nashville parted ways with Barry Trotz, and Peter Laviolette came in, and his whole thing in the defensive zone, suppressing shots. And that was dovetail with the rise of Matthias Ekholm, and all of a sudden, Pekka Rinne went from 15 shots in the first period to like 5, and he had a hard time with it. Like he really felt like he couldn't get into the game. And Barry just sort of instinctively knew, and he's an old defenseman from the Regina Pats himself, just instinctively knew that our goaltender needs to feel the puck a lot early. And I can't help but we always draw the association and say the old saying, show me a good goaltender, I'll show you a good coach. And it's true. And one of the best batteries we ever saw was Barry Trotz and Pekka Rinne. Long story.
One of my no, it's good. I can do these Barry Trotz stories too. Like one of my favorite clips that I saw, I remember like, when I was in my heavy, like degenerate gambling days, like in college, I saw Barry Trotz did like a hot lap in Tampa the morning of Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final when Tampa played Washington, and Barry Trotz did that hot lap. I was like, "There's no way they're losing. Like they're winning this game." And like, in that, I was a poor college kid. I probably put like $50 on it, but I was like, "This is my mega max bet, $50."
Barry told me interesting. Picking up the conversation about the Pittsburgh Penguins. I remember when Barry was coaching Washington. I was doing a show with John Shannon, and Barry was on, and Caps were playing the Pens, and he said something along the lines of, I know what to do and how to coach against Sidney Crosby. It won't always work, but I have an idea of what to do. And I'll never forget that. He said, the guy that scares me, though, is Malkin. That's the guy that I look at and I'm like, man, he's one of the hardest players to coach against. At least with Crosby, it's going to be, he's going to like effort everywhere all over the ice, and you know what to do with that. He said, Malkin is terrifying. And I'll never forget about that. And I've never forgot about that one, how hearing, Barry Trotz, elite level coach talk about how Malkin scared him and it was a tough guy to coach against. Whereas Crosby, even though he's like, one of the greats of all time, you kind of know what he's going to do. He just wills himself to success. Interesting comment. Trotz a fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, he is. One other thing here before, I don't know if we have Max and Josh yet, or Max and Jake yet. I'm sorry. We wanted to show this clip last night of Zach Werenski carrying the American flag around the home. Is it Nationwide Arena still, or did they change it?
Nationwide Arena, yeah. From this from 2
Okay.
days ago. Was this after the shutout?
It was 2 days ago.
Another shutout. Yeah, I think it was
2 days ago, not last night. Okay, well, this is amazing. Like seeing Werenski take the American flag around the ice in front of the Columbus fans, pumping up the crowd, like a perfect send-off for Werenski, who's having an amazing season in Columbus, 20 goals on the year. Should be more talked about in the Norris conversation. Seeing that moment, like that's the stuff that gives me chills, right? So there were a couple of other send-offs. Not every organization did it.
So my favorite send-off, and I'm not sure if Vic was able to find the footage here. Because I love that. First of all, like that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, man, that's so cool. To me, like the best send off I ever saw was, and again, I didn't see it live, obviously. Although many will say, like, yeah, you're probably a Cub reporter at that point. 1942, the Boston Bruins are playing the Montreal Canadiens at the Boston Garden. But here's the thing about this. So this is 1942 February. Milt Schmidt, Bobby Bauer, and Woody Dumart are the Kraut line, like the best line in hockey. There they are. And it's their last game before they go to join the Royal Canadian Air Force. And they're off to fight in World War II. And the best part about it, and Milt, there's a couple of interviews out there, Milt Schmidt talks about how much it meant to him and his teammates. Montreal Canadiens players put 3 Boston Bruins on their shoulders and skated them off the ice and into war in World War II. Like, that's a send-off. Like, when the opposition, who you've just crushed, I think the final score of that game was like 8-1. The Bruins just destroyed the Habs. And the Montreal Canadiens players put those 3, all from Kitchener, Ontario, formerly Berlin, put them all on their shoulders to carry them off into war in 1942. One of the best things one of the best things I've ever seen in the NHL. One of the best things ever.
That is really cool. And the footage, honestly, getting that is insane. Like,
Vic.
Credit to Vic for being on the money today and finding that. I think we do have Max and Jake ready. So just getting clarification here from Vic to make sure we can bring them in. So let's try it. Vic, are we good to go? Should we bring in Max and Jake? Max Gershberg, Jake Rogal, the directors of Miracle, the boys of 80. Boys, it's great to have you here this morning. First of all, thank you for being here and thank you for making this. Obviously, it's a story that a lot of American-born kids like me love and know. I don't know if Jeff, a Canadian-born guy, loves it as much as I do. I'm sure as a hockey historian, you do though.
Can I jump right in? It was the cool. So my I'm gonna sound like a douchey hockey dad here. My 2010 2 years ago or 3 years ago, went and played in the Lake Placid tournament. And for a lot of kids, like the history and the gravity of it is kind of lost on it. But like, and I was included in this one, like all the dads, like when we walked in the rink, it was like flood. Just like, I don't know, like the benches have been redone. It's been got a fresh coat of paint and the whole deal. But like just the memories, guys, and you guys know this, just come flooding back of some of the most seminal moments the game has ever seen. The effects of which, as you guys know, are still being felt to this day as Pat Kane becomes like the greatest U.S.-born hockey player in the history of the NHL. Anyway, I'll send it back to you, John. I just want to, even a Canadian kid can appreciate it, guys, and the documentary is excellent.
Yeah, I'll just, I'll pick one of you guys here. I know it's 2 of you, so it's tough to direct a question, but I'll start with you, Max. Just the feedback you guys have gotten, because I've been asked, like, what's the difference with this documentary on Netflix versus the one we've seen on HBO? And I've just told everyone it feels more personal. It feels like you're getting to know the guys on a personal level. It's not like your traditional documentary style. And I'm curious what you guys have heard from the people who have watched it so far.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, guys. It has been a fun experience this last week or so since it's been out on Netflix to see the way people have received the project. I think folks had an understandable skepticism when they first saw the promotional material. Like, what don't we know? We've heard the story, we've watched the movies, we've read the books, and that was kind of a mission for Jake and I and our whole team at the beginning, was to reframe this in a fresh way. We were lucky enough to make it with the Olympics, and they had this catalog of old, incredible 16 millimeter film footage that we knew could paint the event visually in a different way. And for us hockey guys, like the low angles, the different vantage points of these moments throughout the tournament, even just the aesthetics of Lake Placid, which was a one-of-a-kind, quaint Olympic venue. We knew we had that advantage with the footage. And then in the telling of the story, we just tried to kind of go at some things that hadn't really been unpacked before. My feeling was that people knew this team. They knew the larger story. Even hockey fans up in Canada, they know about the history writ large. But some of these guys individually, hockey legends, Ken Morrow, Mark Johnson, Jim Craig, they have personal stories and family dynamics that I don't think had been explored in depth in past projects. So we tried to just give the project a little bit more of that kind of like poignant, reflective nature. And it's been really nice to see people respond to that.
Okay, who wants to handle a philosophical question? Max or Jake, take your pick. So I want to couch this in one very specific way. As a Canadian, the closest thing we have, okay, Jake, here we go. Put on your philosopher's cap.
I'll try, man.
As a Canadian, the closest thing as a Canadian we have to 1980 was his 1972 Summit Series. And first of all, I wasn't one of those skeptics about the project because I don't look at history as fixed. It's kind of a cascading wave that comes in and out, and different generations have different versions of perspectives on specific events. But when I look at 1972, Canadians focus on the last game. Okay, they'll focus on Game 8. That was the most important one because Canada won the series. But as I get older, I look at the entire series, and to me, Game 1 becomes more important because that changed international hockey forever. You know, the Soviets beat Canada, and it was really the beginning of international hockey at that level. And that only happens with the passage of time. Do you find that when you are talking to any of these players, or maybe even just fans that have went through it, that perspective has changed on what 1980 represented? Because what 1980 meant in 1980 might be different than what it means in 2026. Did you find that at all?
That's a really good question. I actually think one of the amazing things about this moment is that I don't know if perspective actually did change. I think I agree with you that as time goes on, things are viewed differently. The one thing I think about is if you had interviewed these players in 1981, their emotion and their answers may have been different with lack of perspective. But I don't think that I think the moment is so special and it was so poignant that it kind of froze in time. And when you look back on it, even with hindsight and with distance, it conjures up the same feeling that people had in 1980, which is what makes it so special. So, you know, I'm not quite sure. I actually think it is one of those things that's kind of frozen in time, and what it did to the country and how it made people feel at that time still makes people feel the same way now. And that's why it resonates so much and why people are drawn to it so much, is that it takes you back to that feeling. And so like a lot of these players, Max and I talk about it all the time, we were surprised at how emotional they still are about it, having talked about it for so long, and they're older men now and they've moved on in their lives a little bit, and it's still right there at the surface, and you can see it in the film. So I kind of do think it's sort of a frozen in time moment.
And for me,
follow up, Johnny. If I can
just,
it's a quick follow up, Johnny. I swear I'm going to hand the whole thing over to you. So as a follow up, then I'm always interested in the alternative universe. Like if Canada loses that Game 8 against the Soviet Union, what happens? Probably it's better for Canada because as Canadians we reevaluate our game. What if U.S. hadn't won that game? Did the guys ever talk about that? And have you ever talked about that? Have you ever thought about what hockey, not just in the United States, but in North America, and maybe even worldwide, where right now USA is a juggernaut. Have you ever thought about what would have happened if those guys didn't win that game?
I think it's an interesting question. I think from a butterfly effect standpoint,
there's
no doubt.
Yes.
There's no doubt that what they did set off a cascade that had a huge impact on American hockey and the growth and the evolution of American hockey. I think if you ask those guys honestly, I mean, even Mark Johnson, who was their best player, he said the morning of the game, and you know, hockey people know his father, Badger Bob, who was great coach at Wisconsin. His dad, like Herb Brooks, was a student of the Soviets. So Mark grew up like watching tape of the Summit Series, and he knew about the Soviets. He said, we weren't going to beat them. He said, no chance. The morning of the game, he said, you know, hockey players are supposed to always believe you bring your game, you have a chance. No chance. So I think if the Americans had like won the bronze, I think they would have counted it as a relative success based on what the expectations were going into the tournament. But there's no question, Jeff, that the trickle-down effect and the bearing it had on the country and then on American hockey would have been totally different.
And with that too, like just this storytelling in particular, something that was the most powerful was hearing Herb Brooks's words and his voice. Like that's something that I haven't really heard much of. And I'm so pissed at myself for forgetting which player read that letter, but hearing that letter that was written in June of 1980 after the fact, and you know, the guys all together in the locker room talking about how they just wish they could talk about this moment with Herb now and have him let his hair down and be one of the guys. Like, that is something that I don't think anyone has heard about this story before. And for you guys to go dig and unpack and find Herb's actual words, like, what was that? How emotional was that for you with his family and his kids?
Yeah, so I'll give a quick shout out to Dan and Kelly, Herb's kids. They were wonderful. They were very accommodating. They were eagerly participating in the project. And while Dan was the older sibling and he had more of a recollection of what happened in 1980, Kelly is like the keeper of the history, in that she has this old box of Dad's calendars, his notes, his playbooks, his speeches. And our first phone call, she told me about it, and like, my eyes lit up and I'm like, oh, I got to see this stuff. And they brought it to the interview. We would have honestly liked to have used even more of it, but even just a little bit of it. And, you know, Jonny too, I think Jake and I love in sports documentaries when someone has passed, but you could still find a way to give them presence. And so Herb's voice, he had such a distinct voice. And so we wanted to use, you know, audio clips of him and really make him felt in the film. He was such an interesting man, his leadership style, that, you know, he was complicated. And the players have complicated feelings about him, as you appreciate, I think, when you watch the doc. And I'll give one more kind of call out. Wayne Coffey wrote a great book about this team called The Boys of Winter. And in it, at the very end, they mention this letter. And I spent like months asking the players, like, what do you remember this letter? And none of them had it, or a lot of them forgot about it. Ken Morrow had it. And so Ken Morrow says, I do have it. And he brought it. And what was genuine and authentic when you watch the doc is his teammates forgot about that letter. So they're reacting. They're like stunned hearing him reread this letter from 45 years ago. And I don't want to speak for Jake, but it was one of our favorite parts of the film. And so we were glad to be able to showcase it.
It definitely was. I think the Herb side of the whole story it's the hardest one to understand. Like, this story is so clean in a sense of like the underdogs coming in to take out the Soviets, and it's really hard. It's easy to understand. The Herb part of it is really hard to understand because, you know, I think he would say, look at people are still talking about this moment, this much later, and it means so much to so many people, and that's partly because of my coaching and because I was hard on you guys and I got the most out of you, and that came at a cost. And I think the hard part to grasp is that when the moment was over and they had accomplished something so great, Herb still didn't really let his guard down. I think a lot of the players probably figured it's a coaching tactic, and once this is over and we've won gold and accomplished this amazing thing, we'll have this thing together. And they did, but it wasn't with Herb after that. He never really came around to showing them the love that I think a lot of them wish they had gotten. And I think that's a really interesting and hard thing to unpack, and I don't know if we'll ever find out why that was the case. This is kind of how he was. But it would have been interesting if he was still alive for him to see this stuff. You know, I think that's one of the things Max and I both wish, to just, you know, that emotion is palpable when you watch these players reacting. And I wonder how he would have reacted to that.
And for me, sorry, Jeff. Yeah.
Sorry, John. I want to tell you a story that's not in the doc. I think you guys will like it. So
yes, please do.
Bill Baker was Herb's captain at the University of Minnesota on those great late 70s teams. And Bill knew Herb as well as anyone. And Bill went on to be a dentist. He had a very successful life after hockey. And then he was inducted into the University of Minnesota Sports Hall of Fame. And a bunch of his old teammates came and all these people came. Herb, this was before Herb passed. And Herb didn't come to the ceremony. But then the next day or the next week, Bill tells this story that he's at his dentist's office. He's at his office working. And he gets a call. Hey, Herb Brooks is on the phone. And he thinks it's one of his old teammates, like Phil Vercoda or one of these guys, messing with him. He's like, yeah. So he picks up the phone and he's like, what do you want? And it's Herb. And he says 4 words. He's like, Bill, congratulations. Nice job. Hangs up the phone. And Bill was like, I'm sitting there. I'm like, what was that? And so that was their relationship, even years later when they wanted this warmth. And that's who Herb was.
And if I can just quick, Jeff, this is just because the generational difference with I'm turning 30 in March. I'm a 96 birth year. I grew up on the movie. I didn't grow up on the story. So when I heard Herb Brooks, I thought Kurt Russell. I didn't think of the actual Herb Brooks. So to hear him speak, to hear his voice, and the one quote that really stuck out in the documentary, I wasn't trying to put greatness into anybody. I was trying to pull it out. Like that was such a like little quote in the documentary. I feel like that had such big meaning and power behind it. But I feel like for the people like me, and I don't know how old you guys are, but for the kids who grew up watching it on buses, and like it was the only movie we watched on bus trips. And I feel like our association with Herb Brooks was always just Kurt Russell. And now I feel like when I hear Herb Brooks, I can actually think of the actual Herb Brooks. And I think that's what this documentary did.
Can I pick up a question about Herb Brooks too? Because I like everybody, I think we're all sort of fascinated by Herb, and I think that when you have, like, when you're in a position that Herb Brooks is in with these players, and I loved that line about I'm not trying to make them great, I'm trying to pull greatness out of them. You think about the difference between like painting, art by addition, sculpture, art by subtraction. I'm just trying to pull the greatness out and get rid of all the things that aren't these players. I love that line by Herb. It's so great. Did you, through your research in this, because Herb sort of does still exist in sort of stereotype. Like when a coach goes bananas, like, oh, he's going full Herbie. Oh, he went Herbie on the boys last night. We still hear this to this day, like in the NHL. Do you get a sense of who Herb Brooks was? Because the relationship with all the players would be different. The way he talked to Jim Craig would be different than Michael Ruggioni and Ken Morrow. Like, it would all be different. Were you able to sort of get an idea, though, of who he actually was?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jeff. I think you always want to unlock more. And in the research and in the making of the doc, you're peeling the layers of the onion and you're getting some of it, and then you're always curious about more. I think what you begin to appreciate, and when you watch the doc, you'll see some of this, is his own hockey life, the way he was raised, the way his father talked to him, some of the pain he endured, and he was, I don't want to spoil anything. Some people know the history. He was supposed to be on the 1960 team, and then he wasn't.
Yeah.
And that, of course, was the last American team to win gold. You can see some of those scars, and you can maybe start to understand how he was. I think the other thing you appreciate is that he was just so focused on hockey. I mean, he was a student. He really appreciated and had real curiosity in all sorts of facets of the game. He loved the European game. He wanted to emulate it so they could beat the Europeans. Another thing that's not in the doc, but throughout the 1980 games, he would have regular dinners with Al Michaels and Ken Dryden. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say, I had a wonderful time talking to Ken Dryden during the making of this movie. We were in the process of planning his interview to be a part of it. And then, of course, he passed, and we were really sad not to have Ken on camera in the film. But the reason I bring up Ken is because even like the night before the Soviet game, Ken Dryden knew the Soviets very well, and Herb's picking his brain. And, the great Craig Patrick, the assistant coach, told stories about Herb. In the middle of the night, they would share a hotel room on the road, and Craig would wake up and it would be 2:30, and Herb would be up scribbling notes, in the hotel room. And so, I mean, he was singularly focused. And I think it's easy to look at a coach who's a taskmaster and say, oh, they're just kind of, as Mike Ruzioni calls him, a prick. But I think there was a method to Herb's madness in all of its dimensions. And I think when you watch the doc, you start to appreciate how and why he did the things he did.
Yeah. Some of the other, guys whose stories haven't been told as much, I guess, and I'll kick this over to you, Jake. Like, I found it interesting hearing Steve Janicek talk. I haven't really heard much of his story and like his perspective, right? Like, he was Herb's guy in college, and he kind of embraced this role of being the backup. And, I'm curious, I'm sure the answer is him, but was there one guy who you guys literally just from this team knew nothing about that you really walked away with, oh my God, like, what an interesting perspective he had on this team,
I don't, for me, and Max can answer this better than I can, but for me personally, it wasn't that I didn't know a lot about Ken Morrow. It's that I didn't know the depths to which he could show emotion and speak in a way that would affect me as much as he did. And so I think getting to know his character and getting to know his backstory and seeing, he's kind of like, he's subtle and he's sort of a quiet guy, and you heard the name just being an NHL fan. But I think I was surprised at what he brought to the film, whether it was bringing the letter to the locker room or talking about his father or, the emotion he shows when they win gold. I think uncovering that side of Ken, who's a pretty stoic person, for me was like probably the best part of the project. As you said, Janusek was amazing, and his story is great, and it shows you how much camaraderie these guys had. That he's still so proud, and he didn't play, and he's up there smiling. He has the biggest smile in the entire doc, and he played less than anybody. It just speaks volumes to him. But Max probably has a more interesting answer than me on that one.
No, I mean, Ken definitely comes to mind. I mean, we went into his interview not knowing what to expect. Again, he's a hockey legend, but he is quiet, and he was wonderful. And he was so vulnerable and candid and authentic. And I remember the interview ended and we were looking at each other. We're like, wow, that was very powerful. So Ken is up there. Yeah, they all really, I give the players credit, because I think on camera, when they do projects, and off camera, they get asked about this every day of their lives. For 45 years. Yeah. And it would be understandable if they signed on to do this documentary, but they kind of told the same Can story or came to it a bit like rehearsed. And I really appreciate they were authentic, they were reflective, they were emotional. And I think it shines through in the doc. And I don't think that was a given. And I appreciate the players coming to it with that kind of level of vulnerability, I would say.
Mm-hmm. I haven't mentioned how much I love this, and like this is, and I've encouraged people on my show to go and even if you think you already know the story, go and watch it. And even for someone like me, and when I thought I had, like, to your point, like read everything, seen everything, heard comments about everybody about this, there was a couple of things that really triggered memories, and sort of like, as I get older, I look for how things are more similar than they are different. And there's one bit of symmetry that I found in the documentary, and I'll reference it this way. So just as you were talking, I just pulled this off my shelf. It's one of my favorite hockey books, Tarasov, How to Win the Olympics. To me, it's a gold mine. And there's one passage in here, and you have this, you have one of the clips in the documentary of Herb Brooks talking about a different style of American hockey, and a lot of it's going to revolve around passing. And now this is how Tarasov put the Soviet Union on the hockey map. And there's a quote in this book. I'll read it here for our viewers. The main thing about our passes is they come from the heart. Our boys are not stingy when it comes to passing. The Soviet pass is a new embodiment of teamwork. If I didn't tell you that was Anatoly Tarasov, you would have said, that's Herb Brooks talking about the 1980 team. And I'm watching this, I'm like, damn it, that's Tarasov, man. Like, that's Soviet style. And then in my head, I'm going like, he beat the Soviets using their style. They had to be in shape, and they had to move the puck. And let's not forget, at that time, hockey was still very much a grab the puck and rush with it sport. There was not a lot of passing in the game. The Flyers did it well, but then Fred Shiro was a big fan of Anatoly Tarasov and would go to Russia every year. And I'm like, man, this documentary just made me make that connection. That, I don't know if there's a question attached to this other than thanks. Because just when I think I understood 80 and U.S. Soviet Union, I didn't. But now I've made a connection. Does that resonate with you guys at all? Can you see that between, and the viz of Tarasov that you had in there is great too. Can you see that connection between how the Soviets played and the United States played?
Yeah, absolutely. And Herb talked about it. It wasn't a coincidence. It was intentional. You know, I loved hearing his kids talk about how, like, their dad would be over in Europe for either he would be with a team and he would find out. He was almost like a Russian spy. He would have these people who would tell him where the Soviets were practicing, because they were very secretive about and he would sneak into their practices to try and take some of their tactics. And, you know, it's funny, going back to our guy, Ken Morrow, who we were just talking about. Ken Morrow, like old school rugged defenseman. And Ken told me how Herb would scream at him about dumping the puck. And they wanted, you know, Ken was like, he had played at Bowling Green and it was dump and chase hockey. And Herb was like, we're not doing that. Stop dumping the puck. And, you know, in 1980, that for North American hockey, as you guys know, that was revolutionary. The idea that you'd scream at a Ken Morrow for throwing the puck in. And it was all inspired, as you said, Jeff, by Tarasov and that school.
My last one for you guys. And, you know, Max, I think you mentioned the footage. And I think just to read one comment in our chat from General Soreness, who said, I've watched every documentary on Miracle 100 times, and this new doc was wonderful. Lots of stuff I'd never seen before. And I think that's how most of us felt. The footage and the one particular goal that I had never seen like this angle of, I think it was the McClanahan goal in the gold medal game against Finland, where you actually see him like hesitate for a second and go 5-hole. Like the quality of hockey, I think that you get from this documentary. Like I think back to 1980, I'm like there wasn't much skill there, you know, like, but you see the Madison Square Garden footage and the goals that the Soviets scored at MSG when they whooped them 10-3, like the spinorama, like these are nasty goals. Like, and I don't think it comes across when you watch the actual game footage versus the footage you guys got, but like, do you have a deeper appreciation now for the quality of hockey that was played in 1980? Like that was my takeaway too.
Yeah. I mean, Max and I are big hockey fans. Like we come into this world making docs on all different subjects and all different people and all different, you know, you name it. But we're hockey guys. Like that's our favorite sport. We both played it growing up. I'm from Pittsburgh. Max is from Buffalo. Nice Pittsburgh win last night, by the way, Max. We didn't talk about that. But I like we're hockey guys. And so anytime there's hockey footage, Max and I will watch every frame of it. And so seeing this and like you think about the 80s and some of the goalies stand up a little bit more and some of the goals look a little goofier. Like these guys are still amazing athletes. They're amazing hockey players. And I think that it does get lost now when you have guys like, you know, Sid, my guy Sid or McDavid or any of these guys doing what they're doing now. To compare the two is kind of hard, but there's still some amazing hockey being played. And I think the footage helps to bring that out. But that shouldn't get lost in the shuffle. Just like as hockey fans, there was great hockey being played.
Mm-hmm. Last one on my end. Maybe kind of a frivolous one, maybe a throwaway, but let's see if I can find anything here. Memorabilia from 1980. You know the
index card with Herb's speech. Oh,
well, yeah, absolutely. But as far as like, Pat Stapleton was revealed years and years later to be the guy that stole the game 8 puck in 1972, even though he denied it for years. And then video popped up of Whitey fishing the puck out of the net. And so he got caught, but whatever. And then he maintains that he just lost it in a snowbank. No one believed him. But is there like a white whale for memorabilia for 1980? Like in the NHL, the biggest white whale is the Hamilton Tigers jersey of that team that later moved to New York. Is there like a piece of memorabilia, the flag around Jim Craig? Like, is there anything that you look at and go like, that is like the ultimate piece of memorabilia from 1980?
I don't know. Tough question. I liked the.
That's a really good question.
I liked the velour tracksuits they wore for the medal ceremony. I don't know where those are, but I would take one of those. Those were sharp.
Those cowboy hats. Cowboy hats at the opening ceremony were cool.
Those are cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a very good question, Jeff. I'll have to think about that one and get back to you.
Mm-hmm. I do think that index card should go to the Hall of Fame with hers. Like you know, this is your time. Go take it. Like that was awesome.
Yeah.
It was cool, and they that big box of things that his daughter Kelly had. I mean, there was more in there that you guys would love. Like there were playbooks with like play designs and you know, old he had stuff on like napkins. You know, his son Dan tells a funny story that they didn't see Herb a ton in 1980 in the Village, but then the night between the Soviet game and the gold medal game against Finland, they went to a family dinner and Herb was like zoned out. He wasn't listening and he was scribbling line combinations on the napkin at dinner. And like, you know, he just was all in on that.
Yep.
And his kids, amazingly, they've kept all these like little scraps of paper and schedules and playbooks and notes. It's special stuff.
Yeah. Last one, just for you guys to leave something with our listeners, to people maybe who haven't seen it yet. Like, is there one message you want people to know going into the doc? Like, you know, I didn't watch it till, I think it came out on Friday the 30th. I didn't see it till Tuesday. So I had like kind of had a preconceived notion of what it would be. But maybe people are hearing about this for the first time now and just kind of wondering if you guys had anything you'd want to share with people who haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I think the takeaway is just you can watch it no matter who you are, no matter what your relationship is with the moment. Whether you know nothing about hockey and you know nothing about the moment, then great, you're going to get a compelling human story. if you know everything about 1980, there's new stuff in here, new perspective from players and new footage that will teach you new things and show you new ideas. And if you're a generation that loves hockey but doesn't know this talk will lay out the story for you. So I think it can kind of touch on anybody that wants to watch something. It's also a one-off. It's just a movie. It's not, you don't have to watch for 10 hours and 9 episodes and any of that. It's easy. You sit down and do it in one sitting.
I'd like that, though. Could you do one of those? I'd like plenty of them. I would watch that.
Well, Jake did The Last Dance, so don't tempt him with a good time.
No way! Wow. Wow.
But I think it's a doc that can hit anybody. It doesn't matter like if you like hockey or not, or if you know the moment or not. It's like it hits that centerpiece of just like you can be entertained by it and learn from it and feel from it. So that would be the biggest takeaway I hope people get from this.
Yeah. Well, Jake, Max, thank you guys so much for joining us this morning. Oh, sorry, Jeff. Yeah.
I was going to say, can I add one thing just further what Jake is saying? Like I've watched, God, like my whole life, like all of it. So much hockey. And I always feel that one of the great things you can do, and you guys nailed it in this documentary again, there's episode, it's just terrific. If you can teach someone to love something that they already love, but teach them to love it in a different way, that's art. And I really think that that's what this documentary did. Like just when I thought that I knew and loved everything about 1980 and the story and the editorial around all of it, then because I watched the whole thing like on my bike. So thanks, a great fitness documentary as well. I just shredded my legs watching this whole thing. But I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm learning to love something in a way that I didn't think that I ever could. So just from my little corner of someone that's watched like way too much hockey in his life to be healthy, thank you so much for this, guys. It was excellent. Really well done.
Thank you, guys. Our live chat says the same thing too. They're all thanking you. Yeah. Seriously, incredible work. Jake, Max, thank you both so much for being here this morning and for doing this. And I guess best of luck in your next project. We'll be watching it. And have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks,
guys. Go Penguins.
Thank you.
So the next project is going to be the Team Canada gold medal, the 2026 Winter Olympics. Is that going to be their next project?
No, it's going to be the Rangers retool and how they turned things around and won the cup in 2027.
This is like honestly, like this is an excellent documentary, and Jake's right. Like for anyone, even if you know the story, you don't know the story, you're a hockey fan, you're not a hockey fan, it's awesome. And even for some like hardened, cynical old hockey fan like me to look at this thing and go like, oh wow, and had like all those like aha moments along the way. Well done.
And you know what the funniest part about it too? Like I have seen Miracle probably 300 times in my life. I wanted to go watch it again after I watched the documentary. I was like fired up to go watch the movie that I've already seen 300 times. But yeah, awesome stuff. Really appreciative for those two for coming on this morning. Jeff, any final thoughts? Who do you got in the sheet today?
Who do I got to? Dave Pagnotta. So it's going to be behind the scenes on the Artemi Panarin and what's next when the trade freeze is over. I really do wonder about the Los Angeles Kings after last night and that loss against the Vegas Golden Knights and Jim Hiller. So we'll get into that possibly with Dave. And also Berkey couldn't join us on Wednesday, so Berkey is aboard today. So finishing off with some fun with Berkey. And actually we're going to play him the clip of Ryan Miller in your interview with Ryan Miller talking about Berkey. So stay tuned for that one, Jonny Lazarus. You make an appearance on the show today.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll look out for that too. I guess I should let everyone know. I do have like a USA Olympic series coming out. I interviewed so far Ryan Miller, James Van Riemsdyk, Derek Stepan, and David Backus. Trying to lock in a time with Ryan Whitney on Monday to interview him about his Olympic experience too. So should have 5, from this little thing. And are you doing a Olympic hot stove today? Is that right as well?
I am in about 40 minutes. So I'll be doing that. So I got three big,
but not live
here today. So. Not live, no. That's going to go in the can, and then Amal and Zach are going to pretty it up, and then we'll release it next week. Preview time. Awesome. Great stuff. Before we let everyone go, just want to get into our Bet365 bet of the night. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. You must be 19 or older. We're looking at some of the futures lines for the Olympics. I'm going to put a flyer out here. I'm going to say if you're looking for value, why not dabble on Sweden at plus 750? Sweden is the team that might, I don't want to say surprise, but maybe they're a little bit forgotten about. It would be
Olympics. So it's a pretty nice price.
They would be because like that's a team that's just been banged up. like all
Yeah.
season long. No, and no Leo Carlson and no Jonas Brodin. You know, I was really looking forward to seeing Brodin at the Olympics too, because if you look at like any defender who can go stride for stride against like Connor McDavid or Nathan McKinnon or whomever, pick your explosive skater on whichever country, Brodin's the guy. To the point where I've always believed, and I always think this should be in the All-Star game, I've always believed that Jonas Brodin is the fastest backward skater of the NHL. I'm not going to see him play in the Olympics against like the best and fastest and most powerful forwards in the world, and that's a bummer.
Forsling's another one though. You got him.
He is. Yep,
You got him.
Forsling's there too.
You got him.
But that's why I was like, in the All-Star game skill, like in the All-Star skills competition, wouldn't you like? There's two things that I want to see: fastest backward skater and hardest wrist shot. We don't live in a slap shot world. We live in a wrist shot.
No, we
world.
don't.
Like Igor Chinnikov, I was told, like can shoot it between like 91 to 110. Do you not want to see who's got the hardest wrist shot in the NHL?
I would actually. My first thought went to Frank Vetrano.
See, let's do it, man.
Yeah.
So let's do it. Let's see who's got the hardest wrist shot in the NHL. That is an actual skill you use more than taking like 8 steps into a back scratch and slap shot, which you never see in the NHL.
Yeah.
If it's all about the skills in the league, let me see backward skating, let me see wrist shots. That's what I want to see.
I'm all for that, Jeff. I love that idea. Just a reminder, no show Monday or Tuesday. We'll be back Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week. Any final thoughts?
No, man. Listen, thoughts with Colby. Colby and everybody around him today and every day. I'm happy to fill in here on my favorite show. So thanks so much for having me. Thanks to all the
thank you, Jeff.
Chat for putting up with my stupid stories, and that was fun talking to Max and Jake too. That was a great booking and a great documentary.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Thank you, Vic. Thank you, everyone.
And have a great weekend, everybody, and make good decisions. Go out and make some good decisions this weekend, everybody. That's my PSA.
Cut it, Vic. One on that. What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to Morning Cuppa Hockey here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. And don't forget, we've got more great hockey content every day. You can catch DFO live at noon and stick around for the sheet with Jeff Marek at 1 p.m. right here on Daily Faceoff. Until then, keep your coffee hot and your takes hotter.